Minutes stretched into hours, hours into days, years into decades. Time seemed bitter, thick, and useless, like overboiled stew, cooked to scorching. Afewerk counted the leaves, the pages, in her book of remembrance. There were 32 of them, one for each year since the theft of her child, her daughter, Nikayawot. A month after the night of the theft, a night that sent the women fleeing into the darkness, her husband, Kilele, had found her in the Christian section, hidden among the tens of thousands in the great city of Gondar. A family there had taken Afewerk and her granddaughter, Ribka, in. While there, the women had told her stories of other children, sons and daughters, brothers and sisters, stolen away. The Arabian Peninsula was less than a mile across the Red Sea from Ethiopia. Ottomans, she had heard the women whisper. Arabs, Berbers, Turks, corsairs, Barbary pirates. The women spoke of Yemen, Hijaz, Cairo, Tripoli, and Tunisia. The thieves stole Christians to ransom and sell, the women whispered to her. They stole Christians from Ethiopia, from Sudan, and from as far away as Italy, Spain, Bosnia, and even beyond, where all the people were of white skin. They transported them to slave markets even as far away as Morocco, across the Great Sahara. They sold them as slaves, carrying them back across the Red Sea, up the Mediterranean Sea. Stolen boys might be turned to eunuchs. The women wept for their stolen sons. There would be no generations to follow. But the young men might become guards, soldiers, or even well-paid officials. Their daughters, however, would most likely become concubines, or even part of a harem. Some of the mothers dissolved into hysterical tears at the thought, but as they cried, they overlooked the tears of the weeping servants who walked among them. But Afewerk could not shake the feeling that the slavery that had gripped Nikayawot and Misha was but an echo of that practiced in her own land. Even in her own family, it was slavery that insisted that some family members were favored, while others were born to serve. Some were blessed to be masters, Jua, while others were cursed to be slaves, Badia. It was ancient slavery and deeply rooted. Afewerk worried that the slavery within her family displeased Exabierab, God, the father of all. They had failed to free Misha and her family, and now there was a family debt they owed. Now Nikayawot had been stolen and bound in slavery. Or worse. "Forgive us, Exabierab," Afewerk whispered. In the time it took him to find her, Kilele's hair turned gray. He took Afewerk and Ribka back home to the family farm. They would wait there for Nikayawot and her cousin Misha to return. But years passed, and there was no word of their beautiful daughters. Over time, Kilele lost all taste for farming and raising livestock. There was no one to help him. Yosef, Nikayawot's husband, and Misha's husband had perished the night of the raid, the night before Misha and Nikayawot were stolen. The land was raped of the young, the childbearers, those who carried truth and hope forward, and it suffered. The sky was broken-hearted and ran out of tears to cry, so that each year the land grew more parched and cracked. Before Afewerk's eyes, Kilele seemed to shrivel, like a gourd abandoned to the sun, drying up like the land that grieved for the stolen lives. Ribka cried every night. They sold the farm and all their possessions and used the money to travel to slave markets they learned of, like Zanzibar. They hoped to find Nikayawot and Misha, to ransom them, to purchase them back. But the two were nowhere to be found. With the little they had left, what was left of the family had moved to Aksum. There were many mothers and fathers there also weeping for stolen children. Now Ribka had become one of the shrouded women, living in a cave, swallowed in the ashen cowl of her grief. Each day she walked to stand outside the cathedral. She sang sorrowful psalms and offered prayers. Kilele found work sweeping the cathedral steps and doing other odd jobs. Afawork spent her days in prayer and song, rehearsing the holy stories she had learned from her mother, reciting them aloud as though, far away, she hoped that Nikayawot would hear and remember. Afawork prayed day and night. The sun still shone in the sky over the highlands of Ethiopia, like a gold coin against a curtain of blue silk, with yellow and red ribbons. Birds like jewels still flew overhead. The water still roared off the edge of the Tisisant Falls, but all that Afawork could see was scorched brown grass. On her knees, her head bowed, she prayed that Exabier would help her eyes and ears to remember that she was still in Genet, paradise. She prayed to Jesus Christos to help her to love and not hate, to remember that even those who stole and ruined so many lives were still Abraham's children, and that it was only the greedy ones who used the name of Mohammed to cloak their theft. Afawork turned on her knees to face the cathedral of Mariam of Zion. Beneath the sun, and at night the moon and stars, she prayed that God would stir a strong wind that would blow her child back home. Blow Nikayawot and Misha home. She prayed that the strong wind would destroy the chains and set all the captives free. She prayed that it would blow the dust of ignorance from the eyes of the captors. She prayed each day, but only soft winds and gentle storms arose.